Welcome to the Saturday, March 18th, 2017 edition of Auto Talk. I am your host, Ed Welsh, and for the rest of this hour, we'll be discussing matters that are of pertinence to you and your automobile. As always, we hope to impart to you some useful automotive information and perhaps provoke some automotive conversation on this kind of a weird Saturday morning. Whoever thought we'd have about 3 feet of snow sitting out here on March 18th, huh? And if you think about it, last Saturday, they canceled the St. Paddy's Day party, or parade rather, in Utica because it was too cold. And this week, we end up with a record snowstorm. So anyone that thinks winter's over yet, better buckle up. It's not over yet. We got lots of stuff to talk about today. And first, we're going to get to our car care tip of the week, which is really about car problems and mistaken beliefs. You know, like any topic, people hold all kinds of mistaken beliefs about car problems and vehicle maintenance. And I sometimes hear a lot of statements about cars that, for lack of a better term, pretty much flat out wrong. And, people form opinions and they move on with things and become wives' tales in some cases, and in other cases it just becomes we'll just say urban legend kind of thing. So I got about 5 of them here we'll talk about this morning for a few minutes, and hopefully when you hear one of these come up, you'll know which is really right and which isn't. So we'll start with one. Here's a good one. You can't just hook up the computer to find out what's wrong. Now, I usually hear this one when there's a symptom that occurs very infrequently. You know, if the symptom isn't evident when a technician's inspecting the car, chances are that everything is okay when the computer just checks out just fine. You know what? Phantom problems are hard to find. And guess what? You can't just hook up a computer to find out what's wrong with a car. You have to look at things. Even when you get a check engine light, even when you get a code, sometimes you have to go deeper into it. Here's another one. My battery must be fine because my lights and radio still work. Now, we hear that one a lot. And we send out our AAA battery service, and the guys diagnose and test everything right on site. So we hear it a lot when people say, I don't know why my car doesn't start. The battery's got to be okay because my lights and radio work. Well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, it takes a lot more current to turn the starter motor than it does turn on a light or the radio. And, of course, the only way to tell if your battery's okay or not is to really use proper test equipment and evaluate the starting and charging system of the vehicle. We've had a lot of batteries this winter, and just this past week with the cold weather, really just die, and people were quite surprised to learn the batteries just flat out just that was it for them. You know, they do age. Always remember that once a battery's 3 years old, you should probably get it tested every year. 3 to 5 years is normal age of battery. I've seen them last longer. I've seen them last shorter. Everyone's a little different. But, 5 years of a battery is 4 to 5 is pretty average. Unless you buy a really cheapo battery. And there is a difference in quality. But, just because your lights and your lights and your radio work doesn't mean the battery's good. Now, here's one about tires. Got a couple of tire ones for you. So, when you purchase fewer than 4 tires, the newest ones always go to the front. You still hear that. And I will tell you what, 20 years ago, sitting right here doing my show, I would agree with that. That's when front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive vehicles started to become popular. 20 years ago, the vast majority of vehicles on the road were still rear-wheel drive. So back then, if you're buying 2 tires, put them on the front was the old way of doing things. In today's world, you don't do that. Remember that even today, the subject can be debated for hours. I can tell you that. I talk to guys about it, and it's funny how they think. But really the two schools of thought on this are so divided. The Rubber Manufacturers Association has no position on the matter. In other words, the organization that represents all the tire manufacturers will not have an opinion on this. Me, it's pretty simple. In my opinion, if you have a passenger car, you should put the new tires to the front. Very simple. Most front-wheel drive cars today, if not all of them, are passenger vehicles. And so minivans, cars, all front-wheel drive. And the tires should go to the front. Those are the wheels that steer the car, and those are the wheels that drive the car. Now, if you have a pickup truck and you don't put anything in the back, I would put them in the rear. So in other words, if you got a two-wheel drive pickup truck, unless you're driving around with 1,000 pounds in the back of it during the winter, I would put the new tires to the rear. So I think that's the happy median today. But no, they just don't go to the front. Another one that we hear a lot about is just follow the air pressure as listed on the side of the tire. That's basically wrong. There is a tire pressure limit printed on the side of the tire. And that normally tells you what the maximum amount of air is that you could put in that tire. That is not, however, what's recommended. Always look at the owner's manual for the recommended air pressure. Some manufacturers put on a door jamb sticker, some put them in a glove box sticker, but always go by what the manufacturer of the vehicle says should be the tire pressure. Obviously, the tire pressure number on the tire is generally the maximum air pressure you could put in that tire that it could handle. But, if its max is 40 pounds, for example, well, you don't want to put 40 pounds in it. Your car might require 32, for example. So always put on there, look on the door jamb or the owner's manual or the glove box to get the correct tire pressures, and always go by that. And if you notice, many vehicles have a difference from front to rear. And yes, you should look at that. And of course, when you rotate your tires, make sure it gets rechecked, because it's not always the same. Now, my favorite one, and this came up this week quite a bit, for reasons I'll divulge momentarily, but my favorite one is I need to get an alignment on my car because I have a vibration at 55 miles an hour. I bet there was a lot of cars this week that had vibrations at 55 miles an hour. And a lot of it, of course, has to do with snow. And matter of fact, I was pleased to see on the news last night one of my oldest friends and one of my old mentors, Joe Papandrea, explained from Papandrea's Automotive. And he was on TV, and I was happy to see Joe there. And really what happens in the snowstorm especially, and you're driving through snow, a lot of that snow will stick to the inside of your tires. And it becomes like a wheel weight. So in other words, you get this big clump of snow inside the tires, or inside the rim, I should say, and all of a sudden you're driving at highway speed and your tires are out of balance. And that's because of all that weight. And you think there's something wrong with your car because it was fine 5 minutes earlier. Well, the only way to correct that would be to get the snow off the inside of the rims. Matter of fact, we've had that happen to a lot of people this week. Took a lot of calls about that, especially after the big storm. But when you talk about wheel alignments and you talk about tires, an alignment has never solved a problem with vibration. Vibrations are usually caused by tire-related issues, just like I said, balancing, or something like a bent rim or an out-of-round tire. Now, other causes can be worn suspension parts or driveline issues. But remember, alignments deal with the geometry of the vehicle. That affects tire wear and vehicle tracking. That's got nothing to do with things like balance. That's really what the issue is. Folks, it's I think time to take a commercial break. 16 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back, so I hope you'll stick around. I'm Ed Welsh. You're listening to Auto Talk on your News Talk and Sports Leader, WIBX 950 and WIBX950.com.